I want to flag something before diving in. The source outline explicitly states there's no 11 players figure and warns against framing this as a coordinated rebellion. It specifically says don't frame this as 11 secret rebel leaders. The Real story is a messy mix of committee negotiation, public grumbling, and genuine disagreement. Since I don't have a factual basis for 11 top players refuse, I've kept the script's content strictly accurate to the source while using an attention-grabbing but truthful title. Here's the script. Starting in 2028, the PGA Tour will not be one tour anymore. It will be two. One tour built for the stars. One tour for everybody else. This single decision is about to rewrite how professional golf works, who gets paid, who gets access, and who gets left behind. And the tension inside this plan comes down to three things: money, access, and trust between the players and the people running the sport. Here's how it happened, and what it actually means. To understand why the PGA Tour is splitting in two, you have to go back to 2024. That year, the tour launched what became known as signature events, a direct response to the competitive threat from LIV Golf. These were limited field tournaments, most with no cut at all, and purses set at $20 million each. For the players who qualified, it was as close to guaranteed money as professional golf had ever offered. But not everyone qualified. And that created a problem. Enter Brian Rolapp, who took over as commissioner and immediately formed the Future Competition Committee. He didn't run this alone. The committee was chaired by Tiger Woods, and its membership included Patrick Cantlay, Adam Scott, Camilo Villegas, Maverick McNeely, and Keith Mitchell, working alongside outside business advisors brought in specifically to rework the tour's competitive model. The core complaint driving all of this was straightforward: the signature event structure, reduced fields, $20 million purses, no cut for most events, was nearly impossible to turn down if you were eligible. But if you weren't eligible, it created real, tangible problems. You were locked out of the biggest paydays in the sport, competing for a shrinking share of everything else. So what did Rolapp's committee actually propose? From the outset, the stated goal was to build what the committee called the best version of the tour for fans, players, and partners. This wasn't a decision made in a single meeting. According to the reporting, more than 30 meetings were held across committee sessions, working groups, player meetings, player advisory council sessions, and board sessions. Rolapp signaled early that the first track under consideration would roughly double the current 8 signature events up to 16 tournaments, on top of the 4 majors, the Players' Championship, and the postseason. That's a significant expansion of the tier that already dominates the tour's biggest paydays. The plan floated several structural changes at once: promotion and relegation between tiers, doubling the number of signature events, bringing back a 36-hole cut, and increasing field sizes to at least 120 players. Rolapp defended the format publicly, arguing that it produces drama for fans. Critics saw it differently. They argued the structure formalizes inequality among players rather than improving competition on the course. Internally, the Player Advisory Council was briefed on a 2-track structure, referred to as Track 1 and Track 2, featuring 15 to 18 top-tier events plus the 4 majors, field sizes between 120 and 130 players, and a system where the top 90 players on tour would retain top-tier status. Below that line, promotion would come from a Track 2 points list, along with a pathway from the DP World Tour. That was the internal groundwork. Then, in June 2026, the plan became official. Rolapp confirmed that the tour's boards had approved a new competitive model, set to begin with the 2028 season. It replaces the single PGA Tour structure with 2 separate series, the PGA Tour Championship Series and the PGA Tour Challenger Series. In his own words, Rolapp described the new model as grounded in meritocracy, with clearer pathways, higher stakes, and more consistency when the best players compete together. Here is exactly how the 2 tiers break down. The Championship Series will include up to 24 events. That total covers roughly 16 signature events, the Players' Championship, the 4 majors, season-ending events, and the President's Cup and Ryder Cup. Each signature event under this new structure will run 72 holes with a 120-player field, a cut to the top 65 players and ties, and a purse of at least $20 million. The Championship Series will run from February through August. The Challenger Series becomes the main pathway upward for everyone outside the top tier. It will feature in-season promotion. Any player who wins twice on the Challenger Series earns a spot in the Championship Series immediately. The series is expected to include roughly 20 events with 144-man fields. At season's end, at least 20 players from the Challenger Series points list will be promoted to the Championship Series for the following year. There's also a Last Chance Fall Series designed for players who narrowly miss the automatic cutoff. One detail matters more than it might first appear: the clean separation between the two series. As the plan states it, if you are in the Championship Series, you are in the Championship Series. If you are in the Challenger Series, you are in the Challenger Series. That eliminates the sponsor invite workarounds that have historically let struggling former stars or top-ranked amateurs cross between tiers on a case-by-case basis. Now to the part that actually matters for the players living through this transition: how they're reacting. This isn't a simple story of stars versus everyone else. It's more complicated than that, and the reactions on record show real disagreement in multiple directions. Start with the rank-and-file frustration, which predates the final June announcement. Veterans Robert Garrigus and James Hahn publicly criticized the addition of yet another signature event to the 2026 schedule. Both men described it as the latest example of regular tour players being ignored in favor of the sport's top earners. Hahn specifically criticized an unsponsored event held at a Trump-owned course, calling it a joke. That's real, documented frustration from players who are not part of the top tier and don't expect to be under the new structure either. But at the star level, the picture is far more ambivalent than a coordinated rebellion. Rory McIlroy has said the tour gives players the freedom to build their own schedule around family commitments and outside pursuits. He's also acknowledged that he personally chose to skip several signature events this year. That is not the language of a player organizing resistance to leadership. It's a player describing personal scheduling choices within a system he has broad access to. Congestion complaints are also real and recent. At one 2026 signature event billed as featuring an elite field, 5 of the top 15 world-ranked players skipped the tournament entirely, citing a packed schedule. Patrick Cantlay withdrew separately due to illness. So the field that showed up wasn't the field that was advertised, and that gap has fueled criticism of how the current signature event calendar is being managed. Yet there's a genuinely positive read on this same congestion that gets left out of most of the criticism. Despite complaints about a bunched stretch in the 2026 schedule, several tour stars have actually described the jam-packed signature event stretch as a positive development for the sport. Harris English has said plainly that he intends to play all of them, because a guaranteed payday is simply too good to pass up. So what you have isn't unanimous rebellion, and it isn't unanimous support either. It's a genuinely mixed picture: some players frustrated by being excluded from the top tier, some players frustrated by scheduling congestion within the top tier, and other players who see the exact same congestion as an opportunity they're happy to take. That distinction matters, because it changes who actually wins and who's exposed under the new two-series structure. The clearest winners are the players who lock into that top 90 or so ranking under the Championship Series. They get a smaller field, a bigger purse, and cut protection built into a system explicitly designed around them. The players genuinely at risk are the mid-tier professionals who now have to fight through a 144-man Challenger Series field and win their way into the top tier through performance alone. Their path depends heavily on promotion rules that are, as of this reporting, still being finalized, including how eligibility and exemptions will work for DP World Tour players and PGA Tour University golfers trying to break in from outside the existing system. There's also a business angle that shapes why this restructuring is happening at all. Rolapp has said directly that the tour wants to place more events in the largest U.S. media markets. As it stands, the tour currently competes in only 4 of the top 10 largest media markets in the country. A smaller, more concentrated championship series makes it easier to prioritize those markets for sponsors and broadcasters, which is a structural incentive sitting underneath all of the competitive rationale. So where does this actually stand today? The change begins with the 2028 season, meaning there's still a long runway before any of this takes effect, and with it, room for renegotiation on the details that haven't been finalized. The biggest open questions right now: what the final Challenger Series eligibility rules will look like, whether the promotion and relegation numbers announced so far will hold once the plan is implemented, and how the 4 majors and the Ryder Cup will interact with 2 entirely separate point systems running in parallel. None of those questions have been answered yet. What has been answered, and confirmed by Rolapp himself, is that the single PGA Tour structure that's existed for decades is being replaced by 2 series, starting in 2028, built around a philosophy Rolapp has publicly called grounded in meritocracy, with clearer pathways, higher stakes and more consistency when the best players compete together. Whether that philosophy holds up once the Challenger Series eligibility rules are finalized is the question that will define the next 2 years of this story.